Peace, family. What do you think will happen to a person that's running for political office, that in his private life, he was unable to get his personal finance in order, unable to maintain his business finance, unable to make sound decisions on who he chose to be his wife, a person who cheated labor unions and a nonprofit? What if this person ran for political office, President of the United States, and you elected him? What do you think will happen after that? Where am I going with this? Watch this.
To Donald Trump's deeply unpopular war in Iran, which he promised would last weeks, we are hearing from the families of U.S. sailors and Marines. Those family members are outraged by the horrific conditions on board the USS Abraham Lincoln. They describe long workdays, moldy showers, food shortages, and sailors running out of toothpaste, deodorant, and soap.
That's the least you should have expected. If you elect a person who is unable to pay enough attention to get his own personal affairs in order, this is what he's going to do when he's concerned about somebody else. When you have a battleship with moldy showers, no soap, no toothpaste, deodorant, but they did mention toilet paper, so maybe they got an abundance of that. That's absolutely ridiculous. And for the life of me, I don't really expect how you could have expected anything more. But let's continue.
They say their loved ones, our service members, are so exhausted after 9 months at sea, fighting a war with no end in sight, that they fear it could lead to deadly mistakes. Here's how one mom describes her own outrage and the conditions she learned from her son over email.
Food obviously has been scarce. All he's really told me is there was a time where he was only eating half a cup of rice and 2 tortillas. The morale is bad. You're not being able to shower. They don't have toiletries. They're having to share stuff. They're exhausted. Trump doesn't want the bad publicity. He knows. You can't tell me he does not know what's going on over there. You cannot tell me that he does not know that they don't have food. He knows. He knows. Pete Hegseth. Send Pete Hegseth over there. Then you come tell us that everything is okay. Because what we're hearing from our children or our spouses or whomever is not that.
You know what? I'm going to clap back at this mom. Don't give me none of this righteous indignation now. Don't sit up here and talk about somehow you angry about the conditions, how Pete Hegseth knew Donald Trump had to know, whatever, had them send their children over there. That should have been your first option. The people who benefit from this country should be the first ones who be willing to sacrifice for this country. We should never be in the business of sending the poor to fight to protect the interests of the rich. And see, when you elect a person, President of the United States, that has not been able to string together any successful decisions about his personal business life, he's made terrible choices as a wife, and expect this guy to politic on your behalf. This USS Lincoln has been at the port in Iran for like 9 months. At sea for 9 months. Yes, a ship can be at sea for that long. It's nuclear powered. It can stay out there for years. But toothpaste, deodorant, and soap is not. You have to replenish it. How does this ship be at sea so long that the sailors don't have the basic essentials? They eating half a cup of rice and whatever for dinner. And if they're doing that, and she talking about something they're having to share stuff, what else is there to share? You ain't got no soap, no deodorant, no toothpaste. You're eating rice. What is you sharing? This makes absolutely no sense. But, let's continue.
Into our coverage, Pentagon reporter Priya Sridhar, who broke this story. She's also a former officer in the Navy. This is deeply disturbing, and I know you talked to more than a dozen family members. Take us through what you're reporting. Yeah, that's right, Nicole. Well, there are about 5,000 sailors and Marines who are on that aircraft carrier, the Lincoln, and they just broke a record that nobody in the Navy ever wants to break, and that's the most number of continuous days at sea. They left San Diego, their home port, in November. They briefly stopped in Guam in December, and then they didn't make another port call until they went to Oman just a few weeks ago in early July. Many of these sailors and Marines are working 12 to 14-hour shifts, and depending on their jobs, they're not getting a day off. And when you talk about the flight deck of an aircraft carrier, that's one of the most dangerous places in the military, whether or not you're at war. You have these really fast-paced aircraft that are launching and landing on that flight deck. You have bombs, munitions, and weapons that are being moved around at a very fast pace. And you have these sailors and Marines that are being exposed to extremely loud noises for sustained periods of time that can really lead to long-term injuries like hearing loss. So really, what these families are telling me is that when you couple the exhaustion with the low morale that's a result of the fact that they just learned that their deployment was extended for a second time, they're concerned that this could lead to accidents that could potentially turn deadly. And then on top of that, the conditions that you just talked about, they're telling me that the sailors and the Marines can't take hot showers, that the toilets are non-operational, that for weeks at a time there are no access to working laundry facilities, and that they're having to stand in lines to get into the ship's store for 1 to 2 hours. And when they get there, there are no basic hygiene items like toothpaste, deodorant, or soap. And so really their frustration here is that they keep hearing from lawmakers and on the media these questions about our stockpiles of munitions and weapons and $67 billion that Secretary Hegseth is asking for the DOD, and they want their loved ones to be part of this conversation as well.
How long does a boat be at sea before it's mandated that it return to get a crew a break? That's one question I would love to ask. And with 5,000 people on this ship, you telling me that none of these people have called and their supervisor or called the president or called the secretary of war and made any complaints about this? Is it possible that Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth has no idea what's going on this boat? You know, the thing is this, it takes more than the political process to qualify a person to be president of the United States, to put his decision making over the lives of the citizens of this country. And see, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. But this can be used as a political reference as well. When Donald Trump failed at his personal finance, failed at his business finance, failed to make proper moral and character choices for himself, and you elect this person and expect a different result, that is the definition of political insanity. You know, but like I say, these are just my opinions, my thoughts. Leave yours in the comments, and I'll see you in my next video. Ashe.